going to start recording now. So, welcome to the Zcash Arborist Call. Arborist Calls are community calls that are designed for engineers and organizations involved in protocol development to collaborate together on the protocol. Today's agenda of the welcome and the meeting intro, updates from the different nodes in the ecosystem, research and implementation status, to an announcement about Arborist calls over the holiday period, an open announcements period, and an open discussion period. So, as I've already said, Arborist calls are bi-weekly calls for Zcash protocol contributors. This is the call in the 2100 UTC time slot. There's also one at 1500 UTC on Thursday on alternating fortnights. So the purpose of this call is to make Zcash protocol development accessible for a wider set of participants and provide transparency for the community. Anyone interested in learning about Zcash protocol development can register at zcasharborist.org. And if you want to present an in-depth agenda item, you can email arboristcall at zfnd.org to request a presentation slot. There's also some coordination that goes on in the R&D Discord for Zcash. You can also get involved in Zcash development by getting involved in Zcash community grants, the R&D Discord, and the community forums. And all of those links are available at zcasharborist.org. So we'll start with the core team updates, starting with the Electric Coin Company.
Nate?
Cool.
You want to go ahead?
Well, I think this is about Zcash and the wallet SDK.
Well, from
which I don't.
Yeah, from that perspective, the main work going on right now in the core Zcash Rust libraries underpinning both of these is twofold. We have ongoing work to refactor the sapling code from within that code base to extract it out to basically have the same sort of level within the structure as the Orchard code, and add in various bits of type safety and things that we developed during writing the Orchard code, retrofitting it into the sapling pieces. That will also potentially mean that you'll be able to use the stack eventually without the sapling pieces if you want, but it'll be easy to do it once the modularity is there. And then the second piece is introducing Orchard into places where it doesn't currently exist, such as the Lite client wallet component, Zcash client backend, Zcash client SU Lite. So there's ongoing work to refactor those pieces together. The sapling piece, which I've been working on, is hopefully we'll be doing the extraction next week-ish. Would be nice. Assuming that the reviews and the remaining decouplings and things internally go smoothly.
There's one more thing which we wanted to bring up here that I think Nate and I were actually on the hook to prepare for this, but did not get an opportunity to fully prepare. But just as there is an ongoing effort to decentralized responsibility for the z.cash website, the next stage in that process is going to be decentralizing responsibility for the Zcash GitHub organization and Zcash-D. So there are a number of questions with respect to what NU6 looks like for Zcash-D. And we're going to be putting out a call for participants in a new or a new group that can look at sort of the Zcash system more holistically Zcash ecosystem more holistically, and decide, you know, who is going to be responsible for what pieces of the Zcash ecosystem when it comes to Zcashd and the Zcashd wallet going forward.
Thanks for that. Any questions for the teams there? Just raise your hand if you have a question, or feel free to jump in. Okay, so next we'll move on to the Zebra update. Aria was going to do this one, but he's away, so I'll just share what he was going to share earlier. So one of the big pieces of news in this release is that we've started working on shielded scanning in Zebra. So it's very experimental at the moment, but you'll start to see some new crates and some changes in Zebra. So have a look at those when they're released. The other things in this release in production are that we avoid a panic when reading cache sprout or history trees in the previous Zebra version. So we're encouraging people to upgrade. And we've done a number of network fixes in response to the Zgrat Red Team report. That's most of what's in this release for Zebra. That release is 1.5.0, and that'll be out sometime next week. Any questions about Zebra? Great.
Sorry,
well, we
muted.
might move on. Go for it.
The experimental scan use where I saw one of the PRs looking like it was pulling in from Zcash client backends scanning. Are you looking at the Zcash client SQLite crate as well, or are you at the moment using the backends scanning basis and then your own data stores and things for now?
Yeah, so for the moment, we think we're going to use our own data stores, but we're still in a very experimental stage.
Yep.
So we're just seeing what's possible at the moment.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be good to once you've got something sort of like end to end, I guess there would be good to have a maybe not in an Arborist call, but an offline chat at some point to see like how things are working there and how you're finding them. Because the extracting out the pieces that are useful from that from a wallet perspective, and decoupling them from like the light client pieces specifically, because of course you're operating in a full node context, would be good to have at some stage. So we can have an offline chat about that in the R&D Discord to figure out how we can sort of do that knowledge share there.
Yeah. Also, just related notes. So as Strad mentioned, I'm currently working pretty heavily on introducing Orchard support into the Zcash client backend APIs. So just as a heads up, there will be a bit of a moving target for the next week or two, but I'm trying to get those API changes wrapped up relatively quickly. So
yeah. And that will only affect you if you're using the current branch. So, because obviously the published crates can't have a moving target because they're pinned.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, hopefully the diff from the current published to the next one will not be too horrible.
Well, there are a substantial number
we'll keep an eye out.
Things moving imports or use statements that will need to change and so forth, and some signatures change, but hopefully, conceptually, not much will need to move around. Or architecturally.
Sounds good. Yeah. I think that knowledge sharing would be good once we have a better idea of what our scanning will look like. Right at the moment, we're just trying things out to make sure that they work.
Yeah, exactly. When you've got like an end-to-end sort of thing working that you're reasonably comfortable with, it'd be good to do that. Yeah.
So just checking any other questions about Zebra before we move on to the research updates. Great. So the first here we have Frost.
Right. So with Frost, we released the 1.0.0 RC0 version of our crate. So the first release candidate. So that's out, and our goal now is to gather feedback from people who are already using it or are interested in it. To see, we want to stabilize the API. So if you have any feedback on the API, that's very welcome right now. Eventually, we will release the final stable 1.0.0, but not sure when. We want to wait a little bit to give time for people to give feedback. But otherwise, the crates are fully functional. We are also working on adding communication to the demo. So we have a demo that works on the terminal, and we're adding socket communications to it. We're halfway through it. And we're planning now the next phase after that. We haven't decided yet, but we might, expand the demo to make its architecture a bit different. Because right now it assumes the coordinator of the Frost signing process is the server, but in practice I think that's unlikely. The server will be some infrastructure server that's running somewhere, like the light validity server. So we might refactor on that, or we're also considering if we just expose this demo as an application, as a graphical interface application, to allow people to experiment with it. But yeah, we're thinking what exactly we're going to do next. And something else that's also going on is we're trying to add no STD support to our crates. So if you have some embedded environment that you like to run Frost, you can. It's done-ish, but I have to, I had to fork some dependencies and stuff like that. So I have to sort these things out, open some PRs. But yeah, eventually we'll get this done. Right, and another thing is that we want to. I wrote a zip, right, for using Frost with Zcash. It has been kind of frozen. It's complete, but we haven't pushed it forward because we were waiting for a security proof by Chelsea. So now that's ready. I think she will publish it on ePrint sometime soon, and we would like to resume the zip process. So whenever we have time, the zip sync, I'd like to revisit the Frost zip so we can sort some things out and eventually make it a zip. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Conrado. Did anybody have questions about Frost? Great. Well, we might move on to the next update, which is the Sustainability Fund. So I'm not sure if we have anybody on the call. We might catch up with that in the next call.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody's here.
Yeah. All right, so Zcash Shielded Assets. Is there anybody from that team on the call? I think they're mainly on the 1500 UTC calls, so we might skip through that one as well. And then Trailing Finality, which I know we have Nate on the call.
Yeah. Okay, so just zooming out to the medium-term roadmap, the last sort of milestone we completed about 2 weeks ago, which was sort of to release a version 0.1.0 of what's called the Trailing Finality Layer book. And that version introduces what is the trailing finality layer and why are we proposing this sort of approach to transition to a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake protocol. And then it also refers to a construction called crosslink. And all of the crosslink writing is external to the book on HackMD. And so it links over there. The next milestone we want to get to is just to integrate those so that the next release of the book will sort of be comprehensive and contain everything about this thing called the crosslink construction, which is sort of the heart of the design so far. And what's happened recently is I finished reviewing the safety arguments with Dara, and it's pretty fun or exciting because this design, I believe, sort of addresses the concern that was brought up at ZCon 4. At ZCon 4, I presented like a simpler design, and there was a concern about that sort of splitting the security so that it would only be as strong as the weakest of the two subprotocols. But I'm pretty sure with crosslink, the safety of the protocol holds as long as the safety of either subprotocol holds, which is really nice. So that's much better. And then in the meantime, we've just started discussing creating a prototype. So we want to make a prototype, and we're exploring using Zebra and sort of mashing that together with Comet BFT, which is the main SDK and protocol from the Cosmos ecosystem. And that the initial goal for the prototype isn't necessarily to implement crosslink or to use that particular proof of stake protocol, but rather it's just to start getting our hands messy with Zebra and how to modify it and what it looks like if we're trying to tie together these two protocols, so that we are able to start iterating on that code base. And then as the actual design matures, we could start developing that code base towards a mature, realistic implementation. Yeah, so that's where we are at so far. There's still a lot to the protocol definition that's unanswered open questions, including a lot of the topics that many users are interested in, such as like how staking will work and how yield or delegation or things like that will work. So that stuff is still a ways out. I just wanted to highlight that in case people are listening along, because that's usually usually I get questions about that fairly frequently. So that's still a ways out. Any questions? All right. Feel free to
we might
chat questions.
Yeah. So there's a Q&A and a chat if people want to ask questions that way. So we might go to the next part of the announcement. Feel free to also ask your questions in the open questions section. So the Arborist calls over the holiday period. The next Arborist call is on the 14th of December, the early time slot. And then got a question here. Any objections or concerns about cancelling the 28th of December? Didn't think so. And then the first call of 2024 will be on the 11th of January in the early time slot. So that's 1500 UTC. So those details will be available on the Zcash Arborist Calls website. And now we have an open announcement section. So if anybody's got an announcement they want to share, please raise their hand. I know we've got at least one. Marek, are you ready to share?
Sure, yeah. Zebra has its first block on mainnet that we know of. I can share how we did it. So a while back, we implemented mining support in Zebra, and recently we enabled the RPCs in the default build. And I've been mining Zcash for more than a year, and I never thought it was possible to produce a block with the hardware that I have. Until we were enabling the RPCs, and I randomly thought of calculating the probability of producing a block. And the result was that it should be possible to hit the solution once per 10,000 blocks, which seemed quite good because that's about 9 days. So I tried it, and the way I did it was pretty simple. I run Zebra on my desktop, then I connected SNOMP to it, which is a mining pool, and I live in Prague, but the miners are in Slovakia, in my parents' house. So I needed to connect the miners to SNOMP, but I don't have a public IP, so I just set I redirected the port that SNOMP that I was running SNOMP at to a VPS that I ran to make SNOMP publicly accessible, and then I connected the miners to it. And then I was just waiting for a month, and it actually worked. That's about it. I would like to write a blog post about how I operate the machines, because I mentioned it to a few people at Zcon 4, and they were interested in the economics and the consumption and stuff like that. I track all of these data, and if I have time, I might write it up over Christmas. I have the miners immersed in oil so that I can use all the heat from them. The electric power there is about 4.5 kilowatt, which is enough to heat up a whole house. I transfer the heat from the oil to water through heat exchanger, and then I also so the water goes to the radiators in the house, and I also use it in I also use the heat to heat up a water tank for hot water in the house. And the last piece is that I offset the consumption with solar panels, which works great, especially in summer. So in winter, I use all the heat, and in summer, I'm mining almost for free. Yeah, so that's all about it. One more detail maybe is that the way I connect to so the ASICs, they just provide a web interface like a Wi-Fi router, and I needed remote access to them. So on the VPS that I have, I set up an OpenVPN server, and then at home I run OpenVPN client, and I learned to. So thanks to this forced me to learn how to redirect traffic from a client in VPN to the local network on the client, and then back from the local network to the VPN. Yeah.
So any questions for Marek? I know there's been a bunch of comments in the chat.
Just to say that's pretty spectacular.
It's just a hobby. I told a few people on ZCon4, and they wanted to know more. So I'll try to write the blog post over Christmas, because I'll be in Slovakia. So I'll take photos and try to document it.
Great. So look, I'm personally very impressed that it's all doing useful work as well as doing proof of work. So that's pretty good. So yeah, any other announcements? I know this one might be hard to top, but yeah, please feel free. Your announcements are welcome. So yeah, next is the open discussion section. So if there are any topics you'd like to bring up or questions you'd like to ask, please raise your hand. Marek?
So one really random thing about mining, and that's actually a question. What I wonder about is if it's possible to estimate the distribution of mining luck. Mining luck is the deviation from the expected time of hitting a block. So it took a month to hit the right block for me, but the expected time was about 9 days. So the luck was about 300%. 100% is when you hit the right block at the expected time. And I assume that the luck is normally distributed with a mean at 100%. But I wonder about the standard deviation there. I was not able to determine that. And I feel like it should be possible to determine it without the actual data. I think it's an interesting metric for mining in general.
Yeah, because the fun thing there is that what you're dealing with more of a sort of a Poisson distribution. And so if you are it's completely oblivious of everything that's happened prior to that point. So at any point you look at it, your expected wait time is 9 days for that, even if you've already been waiting 18 days. So it's an interesting thing to be like, okay, well, given the knowledge of how long you've been going, how does it actually factor into the statistics?
I see the Poisson distribution, but regarding the luck, I think that's a little bit different, because that just measures how much you deviated from the expected time. And I wonder what's the global value of it, basically.
Yeah, but the thing there is you can't it's an uneven way in which you can deviate, right? It's not normal, because you can only deviate, you can only be faster than the median to a certain degree. So you can only claim blocks to a certain level. And then I think the interesting thing there will be that I would expect to see will be the effect of network latency on like block propagation in terms of how quickly like small miners are seeing the blocks, particularly as like we have much larger blocks or have had much larger blocks in recent history, and how that affects, because obviously the sooner you get a block, the sooner you can start mining on it. That would be probably, if that's the dominant factor in that, then that would be add more of a normal factor. Yeah, that could be very interesting for someone to look at. Most of this should be like visible in the chain data, because even for shielded Coinbase, the Coinbase recipients are public. So it'd be fun.
I wonder if like if there's any difference between Zebra's latency and Zcash deal's latency. Like if
I would hope Zebra's is better.
But that would increase the effective hash rate, basically, of the pool, if it was.
So I know that our latency to get blocks and validate them should hopefully be better, but I think we still have a fixed delay in some of our get block template code. It's not arriving immediately as soon as there's a new block. So yeah, if people are interested in looking into that performance, that is something that's possible to change. But at the time, we didn't have any solid data on whether that would make a difference at all.
Yeah. Whereas we definitely had a bunch of people going, no, we like blocks need to be able to be created as soon as possible, and minimizing in particular, in our case, the time between someone else finding a new block and our get block template call generating something based on it. I remember like a couple of years ago, we had to we put some time into it after getting some user feedback that it was a little too slow. So I expect if there's more uptake of Zebra in mining pools, you will start to get more user issues to that with that regard.
I'm just madly scanning through the code now. Yes, we are doing long polling, but I think our first request comes back very quickly. So that's yeah. The trick is the second time around for long polling. I will go look up what that constant is. It's currently 5 seconds because I think we were a bit cheeky and picked half of Zcash Ds. So yeah, but we can definitely change that or make some code changes to make it virtually instant.
Yeah, because Zcash D has its like 10-second with a like barrier on how long it waits, but it does have a bunch of logic for that will skip past that depending on certain conditions that occur. So that's sort of more an upper limit on how long it will block.
And what helped with producing the block, unfortunately, is also that the global hash rate dropped in the last few months from around 11 gigasol per second to about 8 gigasol per second. I think this is also related to the increase of the global hash rate share of via BTC, because some smaller pools got smaller hash rate, and via BTC basically kept the same hash rate. So the share of via BTC's hash rate increased. So I think that the decrease of the hash rate is the reason why via BTC is so high now.
I should clarify what I just said. I've just been reading our comments. So it turns out when we get a new block, you get block template will return a new answer immediately. It's only when there are mempool transaction changes that we're waiting for 5 seconds to go check the mempool for the next set of changes, which with the current transaction spam is probably a good idea.
Although the transaction spam has actually sort of ceased in the last 2 weeks or so.
Well, so this would be an interesting topic. Would you like to tell us more, Strad, about the transaction spam?
Well, the sandblasting that we've been having for the last, year and a half or so, has generally been reacting to like things that have gone on in the network, and changes deployed to the nodes. We haven't deployed any specific changes recently, but I think there's been more wallets who have been uptaking things like zip 217, sorry, 217, 317, whichever the number is, 217, I think, and similar things, along with after Zcash deployed it within the default block construction algorithm back in April this year, I think it was. And the other thing I've noticed in the past is periodically the spam will just start like dying off, like the mempool just start decreasing, because the rate at which the mempool, like all the transactions in there will have some expiry height, or they will, even if they don't, as more transactions are added, they will get evicted, because you get this because of the way that the mempool's weighted transaction stuff works. If you have transactions that are smaller but more preferred or whatever, when they enter the mempool, the random eviction by weight means the larger spam transactions were getting evicted and not being naturally re-added because they didn't have a wallet behind them that was doing resubmissions. So you would get sort of this natural decay of the transactions over time from that perspective. But normally what had happened when I'd seen that in the past is you'd see that decay, and then come like a Friday evening or Saturday morning kind of time, you'd see some like spikes in and like some curves going on in the behavior, as if someone who is generating them might be experimenting with a script, and then it would ramp back up to full and then sort of go away, continue on that way. But sometime in mid-October, it died off for a period, and got down from like 8,000 transactions down to about 4,500, jumped back up to mempool full, and then a couple of weeks later it died back off, and it's now, as of 16th or so of November, the mempool went back down to like having only a couple of transactions in it on average, and it has been quiet since then. So there's nothing stopping someone from spinning that back up and continuing, but perhaps they got tired of it not being as effective as it was a year ago. Yeah, we can speculate on that regard, but at least for the last since middle of November, the mempool has been basically quiet.
Any more questions on the transaction spam? Marek, I don't know if you have a question or if your hand's raised from before.
I don't know how to put it down.
So any further questions at all before we finish up? Thanks everybody for a bit of a short call today. The next Arborist call is in 2 weeks' time on the 13th of December at 1500 UTC, which is the earlier time slot.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Theor.
Good.